Welcome to the Jungle Discipleship School podcast. Hi, friends. My name is David Small, and thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being with us and for joining us for part 2 of this conversation with Leanne Davidson. And as we dive into topics and themes of grief and walking with God through loss, and Leanne had the loss of her son. And so it's just a really heartfelt thing. And I am really just amazed at Leanne's openness to share. And so if you have not listened to part 1, I would really encourage you to pause this, go back and listen to the last episode, part 1 of this conversation. And this week I'm in Alberta and having some fun visiting friends, old friends from the Army, and making new friends. And then this coming Sunday, I'll be speaking at Sturgeon Alliance Church in Gibbons. Looking forward to that. It's always a great time to be back there. And then next week I'll be in Kelowna, and then onwards from there to Vancouver and hopping across the pond back to Thailand. Looking forward to getting back. I'm so excited to be back there. But we've got a lot planned, a lot going on for JDS2, lots to get started, lots to get organized. And I'm really thankful for everybody this summer who has hosted me for a speaking engagement or a dinner or at their homes or overnight or even just a cup of coffee and a conversation. So thank you for everybody. And thank you for everybody who's opened up their wallets to give. We have huge financial needs, and we'll talk more about that on another podcast. But I'm just really thankful for everyone who's been around this summer and put up with me, and we've had some good laughs as well, so that's always good. But time to head back overseas and back to the mission field, back to home. And so I'm going to start today I'm going to start part 2 of this podcast by reading a poem. And this is a poem in the introduction of Leanne's book, Tattered Hearts and Hopeful Souls. And I hope you'll go and grab a copy of this book. But to start off today, I'm going to read this poem. It says, to Michael, darkness and light, one hides, one reveals what's hidden. Your life was light, fighting the darkness, pain and joy. One crushes inward, one explodes outward. Your life was joy, emerging from your pain. Sorrow and love, one is a result, one is the reason. Love cannot be had without sorrow. It is the price we pay. I will pay it to love you with my entire being. Let's pick back up our conversation with Leanne from yesterday or from last week. And again, please pick up a copy of her book, check out her blog, send her a note, just get in touch with her. And thanks for tuning in. When Michael was struggling with his addiction, so I have a cousin who has he seems to be doing okay these days, but he has a pretty serious addiction out in BC. And I remember my aunt saying, it's so hard to grieve my son because it's like he's not my son anymore when he's using, but he's still alive.
Yeah.
And there was this idea in her mind of kind of like wrestling with, this isn't the boy that I raised anymore. And so how was it for you when Michael was living in his addiction as a parent? I can't imagine.
I was scared all the time.
Uh-huh.
And so I was scared of the one thing.
Scared of that phone call.
That happened.
Yeah.
And I made a million mistakes with him in the way I dealt with him too. Uh-huh. And he and I we kind of grew together in all of that, that I learned as his mom. I'm not going to say do's and don'ts, but I read something once. I can't remember where I read it, but it was about dealing with a child who was struggling with addictions, and at the end of the day, it was really, the message was just love them. And that for me was the biggest light bulb moment, is why am I have to stop trying to do all these things to fix Michael or smarten him up.
Right.
I just need to love him. And I kind of started on that path at the same time that he was really realizing he needed to do things too. And then, so we grew together with our mistakes, we could talk about the mistakes. I remember saying to my siblings one day, I don't wish being a parent of an addict on anybody. It's a heartbreaking road, because you're scared for them all the time. And I used to tell Michael all the time, what I wanted for him more than anything in the world was just for him to be happy,
Right.
for him to be okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I can't imagine. And it seems like an impossible thing. And I struggle with it myself, in the sense of, if I'm walking in a city, if I'm walking downtown, or I'm walking downtown Winnipeg or Calgary, and you see homeless people or drug addicted people, compassion is not my first response. And so I'm curious just to know your thoughts on, how do you feel towards people that you see now struggling with these kinds of addictions?
I'm going to say the same word, compassion. And Michael would have said, first of all, both Michael and I have been the recipients of other people's conversations about drug addicts. And I know Michael would step forward when people were talking about, those street people, or those, and he would just step forward and say, you're talking about me. And he'd share a story. And I
love that.
I remember many conversations over the years, other people talking, and those types of conversations. And I would sit there as a parent, and I didn't often speak up and say things. For me, it was, I would always ask myself, is it worth it right now? Like, if this is a dear friend of mine, and their perceptions are skewed, then it's worth it to me to give them some information. If this is just a group of people that are acquaintances of mine, and they're just
shooting
the
breeze, and
I'm just sitting there with myself and thinking, you guys don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
And I remember many times too, with always that feeling sometimes with other parents, is that, if your child is struggling with addictions, my child wouldn't be, because I'm a good parent.
Right.
But obviously you're not, because
I was going to ask,
is.
how, as a mother, when Michael is struggling with his addictions, do you feel embarrassment or shame, or do you have to wrestle through those, like, where did I go wrong?
I blamed myself many times. And that was a journey for me with God, to really understand. And I think I know I mentioned it in Tattered Hearts and Hopeful Souls. I don't know if I did in my other book, in A Beautiful Pain, but that the idea of the difference between guilt and conviction, and that conviction comes from the Holy Spirit. Guilt comes from the devil. Guilt is not from God. God does not do that to us. And I really had to go on a journey with God, over in my feelings of guilt about Michael, to come to a place where I could know that it's not my fault that he was struggling with with addictions. Right? It was. Did I make mistakes as a parent? Oh, yep.
Probably not. Probably perfect.
Yeah, right.
As most parents. Yeah.
But anything, when we do wrong, we have that assurity of God's forgiveness. That's a promise. Yeah. And we don't have to keep going back to ask for forgiveness. We only have to ask once. Right. So I had to do a lot of work with that, and it's that one of the I just read this, actually. I just finished reading a book by I got to try to remember the author here. Frederick Backman.
Oh yeah, love him.
It's his most recent book.
My Friends.
My Friends.
Love it.
Okay. Oh, it's his best book ever. It's my favorite.
Okay.
I've read them all,
Yeah.
but that one is now my favorite.
I love how he develops characters.
Oh, just that, like, you just want to cry through the whole book and laugh through the whole. Anyway, there's a statement that he made about when you love someone who dies of an overdose, that there's just something innate in us that feels like if I had been able to be with them at every moment of every day, I would have stopped I would have stopped this from happening, and so it is always our fault.
Yeah.
And that just hit a nerve. Like I read that and I thought, yes, that's somehow, even though mentally and in our hearts and we know it's not our fault, there's this thing. I think the way I wrote it, I blogged about it the other day. It's almost like my skin has absorbed this idea that somehow, it's like, well, we're always to blame somehow, even though like I said, like we know we're not. But it's just part of loving somebody who is struggling with addiction and loving someone who dies of an overdose, because it's just a part of it.
In my own journey, I as I lived in Burma, and I've lost a lot of really close friends. And every summer when I come back, I go down to Colorado and I do some counseling. I spend 1 week in counseling. Yeah. It's kind of my debriefing the year, but then reorienting to North American life again. And we talked about, we were doing, it's called parts work, and how we have these different parts of us. And then in parts work, they have managers, firefighters, and exiles. And one of the things that I identified in myself is that I have exiled grief. Like, I don't want to deal with it. I don't know how to deal with it. Yeah. And it happens so frequently, it seems, that it's just like, okay, I'm putting that away, and I'm going to have a manager and a firefighter that are going to do everything possible that I don't need to go down this path of grief. And so to learn how to grieve, to learn how to lament, it's not taught in church very well. And
it's not taught anywhere.
It's not taught anywhere. Yeah. And yet we see, for example, the Psalms, like 40% of the Psalms are Psalms of lament.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
And Psalms of grief and crying out to God. And anyways, but I'm just curious about, at any point, like, how did you deal, first of all, with anger towards God? Did you ever have these times where you were just mad at God?
No, which I find really odd. I do,
because I don't see it in your writing.
No, I know I've spoken to many other people grieving and who feel anger, and I just never have, and I don't have an explanation really. I've had questions for God, 100%. I brought my questions to God. I don't understand why this happened. Why all of those questions. I truly believe God wants us to bring those questions. He wants us to bring our laments to Him. But at the same time, there's not always an answer. And sometimes God's answer is to say, I'm not telling you about this right now. You're going to have to wait. And I've had to accept that. But I just don't feel angry. I don't know. I'm kind of glad. Yeah. I don't know how well I would deal with that if I did. So I'm kind of relieved. In the stages of grief, for the stage of bargaining, we have these kind of if only questions. If only I had been there all the time. If only I had done that. If only. And for me, when I kind of misunderstood bargaining when I was learning about the stages of grief, in the sense of, I thought bargaining meant like, okay, if only I did this differently, that person wouldn't have died. Or maybe I'll bargain in the sense of like, take me instead of them. Right. And I've lost a lot of friends, but I've never felt like, oh, it should have been me. I never had that kind of feeling. And so I was kind of confused about bargaining.
And a friend, or my counselor down in Colorado, was explaining like that he sees bargaining in me trying to arrange for the lives of my friends that are still alive, so that they won't die, and so that I won't have to experience grief.
I won't have to go through this again.
Yeah. And so then I end up doing things like my dear friends in Thailand. I say, oh, come to my school, or live on my school ground, or let me help you get a job in Thailand where I know you're not going to get bombed.
Right.
And I subconsciously do these things that are good for them and helping them, getting them out of the war zone. But in reality, there's a part of it that is like, if they stay there, they might die. And I don't want to deal with this grief again. And so I'm just curious how you, I'm curious, first we could talk about the stages of grief, but also how you deal with the bargaining and these ideas in your own experience.
Oh, a good question. Yeah, I think what your counselor said makes sense to me, that I can see myself thinking, if I'm just always a better person, if I do this, if I do that, then somehow, God will make sure that no one else dies, that no one, right? And it's not really, it doesn't work that way. So I don't know I don't know how much this is a hard question for me to answer, because I've always been a person who I'm very hard on myself, so when, I always see somehow, if things aren't going well, or if I'm not successful, somehow it's my own fault. It has to be, because blah, blah, blah. And I'm really learning, finally, in my 60s. God's so patient.
Yeah.
I'm really learning now about that, and Leanne, that's not who God is. God just loves you. He just loves you. And, you're living in this world that is flawed and messy, and he's just going to walk with you through it. And, and that's what grace, and that's why, I have this tattoo that says grace, and it's to remind me, and it's here on my arm so that I have to see it every day.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of that every day.
And reminds you to be graceful to yourself.
For me, for others, we are living with God's grace.
Yeah.
So that's sort of where I'm at, I think, with the bargaining piece.
I'm encouraged by the fact that you don't have, you're in your 60s and you're still learning all these things. And the same, like my parents are in their 70s and they're still learning. And I'm encouraged because it's like this journey. We get to journey with God, and it actually doesn't end at death. We continue
it's an ongoing journey.
We step into a new era, a new frontier of our existence with God, with Jesus.
Yeah.
But we get to carry on. And so what we begin here is not like, okay, I got to get it all figured out by the time I'm 40 or 50, and I got to get my act together. And we can just keep learning. And okay, I didn't quite realize that, or I screwed that up, and I didn't know God that way. And
I think Paul, I don't know the verse, but he talks about of striving towards the goal, right? That's really what we're doing. We're these flawed human beings that love Jesus and that know He loves us, and we're just keep trying to learn, keep trying to follow His lead, right?
I use the term, I talk about it in the language of, we have categories that we've learned God. Like maybe you've learned God as provider or protector, and I'm just wondering, after Michael's death and in the grieving process, your journey with grief, were there new ways that you learned God that you hadn't experienced Him before?
I think as a comforter, absolutely. And I always had a very strong faith in who God is and in God's love for me. But I think what I've really learned is it's the depth of it, and God's ability to bring. I would never have thought I would be writing books or have a website or be facilitating Grief Share or develop resources on grief for my union, or like I would never have thought of doing any of those things. And, I'm really learning how God just takes our circumstances, whatever they are, and he has the ability to lead us in a direction that is amazing. That, and it's not that God makes these bad things happen to us in order to do that.
Right.
That's not, God
No.
doesn't do, God is, I always just think that's such a when people think God does bad things to them. No, he doesn't. Bad things happen to us. God doesn't do bad things to us. God loves us. But he will take every bad thing that happens and bring you somewhere that you never thought you'd be,
Right.
somewhere amazing.
Right.
So I'm really learning that.
For me, it's interesting to think about the idea of free will, that God has given us freedom because God wants us to he wants us to choose him out of love. He doesn't want us to be slaves or robots. He wants us to choose him in love. And if God were to step in and say, okay, Michael's not going to die, I'm going to miraculously stop that from happening, now free will has been taken out of the equation.
Yeah.
And of course, God can do what he wants when he wants.
Yes, he can.
But he's also given us this dignity of saying, I want people to choose me in love.
Yeah.
And I want to walk with people who love me. And I think it's really, it's so hard because we end up having to live in the mess of the world.
Yeah.
But he's there, like you're saying, he's still walking alongside us and he's making good out of those tragedies and those horrible things.
He does. And he if we're listening, God, he talks to us all the time if we're listening, right? And actually, I'll tell you a little story. Not long ago, I was out for my morning walk, and I had been struggling. I'd kind of, I'd just really blown it in the few days before, and this with just eating everything.
Yeah.
And I was just so down on myself. And I was out for my walk, and I was just like self-criticizing. And I can just hear this voice, going like, "Wow, you're really, you're really down on yourself here right now." And I'm like, well, yeah, because I did this and this and da 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 da. And then God saying, yeah, it sounds like Satan's really winning this battle with you today, hey? And I'm like, yeah, he's pretty much mopping the floor with me, Jesus. Yes, he is. And, and then again, I hear this voice going, well, do you want some help? Like, yes, I do. Yes, I sure do want some help, right? And it's just, when we can open ourselves to listening, God. And I don't mean like, that voice out of heaven, like the story of Saul, like Paul,
thundering.
But it's it's him, because it's not your inner voice. It's him.
I often think of it as like, I have a thought that is coming to me rather than from me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, I need to pay attention to this.
I need to listen. Yeah. Yeah.
You did a certificate in death, dying, and bereavement at Wilfrid Laurier.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Because I was writing about grief, and I just sort of felt like I was writing up from my personal experience, but I wanted to also have some actual, I guess, learning, more formal learning about it. So that's why I took the course. It was very interesting. There were a lot of different modules, different topics. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Yeah. And I did learn a lot. I did find, even in the course itself, though, like you would have breakout rooms and so I was always very open about my own journey. And even there, people are taking that course. There's still people have a hard time hearing about other people's grief. So when you drop the bombshell, my son died 2 years ago, they don't always know what to say or how to even, like, now what are we going to talk about?
Yeah. Like, oh, we were talking about something light and easy, and now it's heavy. And
so, and I mean, that's a lot of why I wrote the books and why I have the website and why I do everything I do is to get those conversations going and to help people to feel more comfortable to talk about grief and more open about it. And that there's no wrong, and it's, and to just talk about it. There's no wrong or right.
yeah,
There's no wrong way. But just be open to have the conversations.
I remember when I was in Burma, and especially there were 2 or 3 years that were very intense. I was losing a lot of people really dear to me. And we were also near or on the front lines where there was a ton of war and trauma and like physical trauma happening. And when I would come out from there and back to the city, I would find it so hard to talk about it with people because I was like, they don't get it. They don't understand. And so then I end up just saying, okay, I'm not going to talk about it.
Yeah.
And then I just like,
I'm okay.
I live in my own little world. I'm not going to talk about it because they don't get it. And you say something and their eyes kind of glaze over like, oh, what am I going to do now? Like, I don't know what to say. And it's not the right way though, to just press it down, it seems.
Well, it's not good for us, right? Like it's not good for our physical bodies or our mental well-being. And I mean, I also think we, as someone who I do talk about my grief, but I also have learned you got to choose your audience. And you're right, not everyone wants to hear about it. But you learn those close friends that you can talk to about it. And the other thing that I do, and I do this everywhere I go, is I share stories and memories about Michael, just like I would if he was still here, right?
Sure.
And all parents do that. They talk about their kids. Well, I talk about my kids, and I'll never stop doing that. And I call it being the rememberer, and I take that job very seriously. And so I share that, and that's a sharing that I think most people are very open to, because you're just talking about a funny story. Oh, my son did this, or right. So people can relate to that.
I loved in your book the stories about Michael. I loved the story. I mean, I loved when you had the things he had written on his whiteboard. Yeah. And I also loved you talking about how he would leave his socks all over. And it brought him to life. And it actually, honestly, it made me think, I think I would have liked this guy. Like, I think I would have been friends with this guy.
You would have loved him.
and I, as I was reading it, I thought to myself, like, oh, I think I would have got along, and we would have had a good time together.
You would have loved him, but you would have never lent him your Tupperware.
Or
anything, actually.
I love that you brought him alive in the book. And for me, I really appreciated that. And so you did a really great job. When did you decide you were going to write a book?
The first book kind of came about, I was blogging, and I just kept
Had you been blogging before Michael's death?
No, it was something I decided that I would do, to start those conversations, and that maybe if I started sharing my journey, it would help other people. So I just started just from my heart, this is where I'm at, this is what I'm feeling, and people kept coming to me and saying, man, Leanne, you're a good writer. And I was like, oh, like I really? Okay, who knew? And it just, and over and over, you should write a book. So it just, said God just keeps prompting us, right? So I thought, okay. So I wrote A Beautiful Pain, which is a lot of what I had in my blogs, putting it together into the book. And while I was doing that, my sister Shannon had come to me and she said, I think you should write a devotional. And that stayed in my mind. So after A Beautiful Pain was out, I really started realizing that a lot of the things I was talking about in A Beautiful Pain, a lot of the different struggles we have in grief, how God had come alongside me with it, how he had provided a scripture or a friend to come, like he had just kept providing. So I took all those themes, like loneliness, joy, or faith, like all of the themes, and I wrote a 30-day devotional based on that, and that's the Tattered Hearts and Hopeful Souls. So that's how that one's come about, And now I've got all these ideas now churning around in my brain about the next, there's, because when you start writing,
Sure.
you just have to, you can't
Yeah.
stop. So I have some ideas kind of bubbling
Well,
away about the
they
next one.
They say it's like a piercing or a tattoo. Like once you get one, then you
just
keep going, and
keep going.
And the same with writing. Once you've written, then you're like, oh, I could write that. Oh, that's a cool story. I could keep doing. And I think it's interesting. How do you write when you sit down to write? What's your rhythm or your routine? Do you try to do a certain amount each day? Do you? No.
It's in a lot of spurts and starts, and I do it as it when I feel. It's the beauty of being retired. I feel like it. But honestly, like most of one of the reasons that I walk, or in the winter snowshoe, because that's where almost 90% of my writing ideas come. When I'm out walking. And I'm also learning, because as you get older, I'll get this great idea. Oh my gosh. And the wording for it is like, oh, that's exactly how I want to say it. And if I don't record that in my phone right away to write it down later, I'll get home and be like, oh, how did I?
Yeah, exactly.
I had this great idea. And now I don't remember it. So that's kind of I don't know. I don't know how other writers, if they have a process. That's kind of my process. Is those thoughts bubble away, and sometimes for days they'll bubble away in my brain, and then I just sit down and just get them down. When
you write, do you have an editor that helps you after you've done your first draft?
I'll finish the whole project, and then I send it to it's an editor, and she's in California. Her name's Jennifer. Oh, darn it, I'm having a brain freeze.
Okay.
It's Tandem Services anyway, and she's great. She's wonderful, and they've edited both my books.
And so do you have a couple of back and forths with her as you're going along?
And more with the first one than the second one.
Do you like track changes where like she makes suggestions and then you find that
and that's really helpful. And I've also I've downloaded a program. It's called Atticus.
Okay.
And that one, so I can write directly into that, and it formats the book for me. So I don't have to pay anyone to format it for Amazon, for Kindle, for whatever. It does it. So that's really very handy.
Cool.
Yeah.
And so you just write directly into that program?
Yeah. Okay. Or sometimes I'll write in a Word document and then copy and paste it in there.
Oh, interesting.
But it's a neat program because you can see, you can do all your writing, and then you can see what it's going to look like. So then no, I don't like how that's laid out, and you can fix things. And
I mean, I like your books because you have some pictures, photography that you took, but also poems that you wrote that are. But I also understand that once you're formatting the book, you're like, oh, wait a second. How do I put the poem in here? This isn't going
to fit, or that, And the pictures, like the devotional that I did, I wanted it to be more than just the devotional. I wanted it to be beautiful. That's why the photographs are in there. And I wanted it to be representative of me living here in Northwestern Ontario. That's where all those pictures are from. And the poetry, I write all this poetry, and like you can't sell a book of poetry, save your life probably. So that's the truth.
That's true.
And so I thought, well, I have all these poems I've written, and they are poems that describe grief. So I'm going to incorporate those into this devotional as well, because that's also part of who I am. So that's the whole devotional, is all of those pieces. Yeah.
Yeah, you're never going to get rich writing poems.
No. So let's see, like 2 for 1. There's some poems and a devotional. Yay.
What have you been, since the books came out and the last couple of years, what kind of things have you been advocating for or doing in Kenora, especially in Kenora, to either have the conversation or to initiate change in the system or in what's available here?
Okay. Well, one of the things I did was to begin, actually it was Deanna Treadway who had suggested this to me a couple of years ago now, about grief support groups, and Grief Share it's Christian based. It's out of the States, but it's a Christian based.
It's a curriculum.
Yeah, it's 13-week grief support program. So that I started, we facilitated here at the church, and we actually have one coming up this fall.
Okay, cool.
Starting September 3rd. So we'll
At
be,
Lakeside?
Yep.
Okay.
So we'll be facilitating that again.
And who is the like what kind of person?
And
Someone who's lost somebody?
Yes. Yeah. Grief Share is 100% for its loss through the death of a loved one.
Okay.
And I'm also right now working with Beth Courtney from church, her and I, and we are planning a service just before Christmas, December 3rd. It's called When Christmas Hurts.
Okay.
And it's a service for not just the church, for the community, and it's for lost, like not just through death of a loved one, but anyone. Christmas can be a really hard time for people, and all kinds of different losses, loss of relationship, job, and Christmas can be a tough time. So this service is meant to be a comfort and support to people. So we're going to be doing that. I have been in contact with the hospital, I'm sort of in the process right now of figuring out ways I can do some volunteering there with people who are either grieving or in like palliative care or possibly struggling with children with drug addictions. So that's still in process. I'm trying to work out how I'm working with Denise Forsythe there, how I can come alongside and be part of some of that. And for me, and just the blog, like I do the website, I keep up and I blog regularly for people.
What's the address?
It's called amothersgriefjourney.com.
Okay, perfect.
And just everywhere I go, I'm I don't know, I just I'm very open about my journey.
You've sold the books at the farmers market.
Yeah.
How is the response or conversations you have with people there?
Not at the farmers market. It's hard to sell books at the market.
Yeah.
I found it more when I have a speaking engagement, like whether it's a book launch or I speak at a church or speak at a small group, people will buy the book. Interestingly enough, though, the last market, this is how God works, like I sold one book that last time. But here's what's cool about that, because I sat there and I thought, oh man, like I was feeling kind of down, like, okay, whatever. But the woman who bought the book, she actually had a booth, just a sort of kitty corner to me. And she is from a church in southern Manitoba. And she came and she prayed over me after right after the market was ending up. And we chatted and she prayed over me. And as she was praying over me, I thought, that's why I'm here today. I was never here to sell books.
Right.
I was here
because you needed the prayer
for her to pray over me.
Yeah.
Okay, God, I get it. Like I get it. Yeah.
And how are you doing today in your journey of grief?
I always feel like I'm doing as well as I could be. It's because, and it's the part to help people understand is that my sister said to me the other day, she has a friend who has cancer and it's not good. And I gave her a hug the other day and just told her how sorry I was, because this girl is like a sister to her. And she said, I'm sorry you have to feel like this every day. And I kind of laughed and I told her, I'm getting used to it. And I mean, because grief, when you lose your child, this is lifelong. I'm not ever going to, like somebody made the comment to me about there's no such thing as uncomplicated happiness. And that's kind of where you are at as a parent when one of your children is gone, is there is happiness and there is joy. There absolutely is. And God brings joy into my life all the time, but it's never uncomplicated. There's always a bit of complication to it. And, some days I feel like, I'll always be okay. I'll always be good. But will I ever feel like spectacular? Yeah. And I don't know. And maybe I will someday. So I don't know the answer yet.
I remember feeling like after I had lost somebody close to me, I remember feeling almost guilty the first time you catch yourself laughing.
Yeah.
After.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I shouldn't.
Yeah.
How did that unfold for you?
I think I felt relieved the first time that I laughed about something and felt joy, I thought, oh, what a relief, because I was so afraid that I would never again, you know. And now, like, what I so firmly believe, there's two parts of joy for me. That first of all, there's the joy of my salvation. You know, Jesus died for me, and I belong to Him, and there's a joy there. Nothing can take that away from me, never. And then there's all these little pieces of joy that God puts in our lives every single day, and they're there for a reason. They're there, you know, and we need to seek them out. We need to keep our hearts open for them, because they're there. They're the safety net.
Yeah.
I really believe that all those little bits of joy, and as simple as that first sip of coffee in the morning, they form this network of protection for us, so that when really hard, bad things happen to us, that's what saves us.
Yeah.
Right? It hold all those things, and God provides that for us, and that holds us together.
I like to call them joy bombs.
Yeah.
And just these like little explosions of joy.
Yeah.
But I also found, for me, nature, being in nature was so important.
Yes.
And John Eldredge talks about how, you know, beauty and nature is healing. And people bring flowers to funerals because it's like this small little reminder of nature and of beauty, that there is still good in the world. There is still beauty in the world, and beauty kind of heals our souls. And for me, just going for walks, being in creation has been a big part of my kind of healing journey. And I imagine for you as well.
Oh, it's huge, actually. Just sitting at home, like just looking out at the lake, going for a walk, being on the lake, that's my happy place. It is a very big part of healing for me. Yeah.
I remember in your book, I remember reading about the first time you traveled after Michael's death, and you were like, oh, I got to hold it together in the airport. But I remember being in an airport once, and just this wave. I don't know what it was. It wasn't like I was kind of rushing around and busy, like got to get my flight, get to the gate, find where's all this stuff, and then I was sitting at the gate, and suddenly I had this wave of sadness come over me. And I remember putting on my sunglasses because I was like, I'm getting all teary-eyed here, and I'm missing my friend. And I just remember these feelings of like, well, that just came out of nowhere.
And that's what happens, like you never know when those moments of that, where it just hits you and all of a sudden you're on your knees bawling.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm always like, please don't let it happen in public. But it has. I try. And most of the, I've talked with many other parents who have lost children too. And people who have just lost people they love. For the most part, we're able to keep that from happening, right? Like we put all these things in place so, we don't fall apart in public. But because we do that, people think, wow, they're doing so well. How strong they are.
Yeah.
They don't see us down on the bathroom floor, like in a puddle, because we don't show that to anybody. We try not to, right? But those moments, they just come. They just happen. You could be in the middle of Safeway and just like, oh, I got to get out of here because this is not going to go well, right? But I guess we just have to learn to let them happen when they happen.
Another thing I wrestled with was I found myself, when I had a good friend who died, I found myself like I'd be walking in the jungle on a mission or somewhere, and I'd be thinking they'd come to mind, and I'd talk to them.
Oh yeah, all the time.
I would say something like, "Bro, I miss you,"
all the time.
And then I was like, where's my theology at in this? Like, I don't quite know what to do with this. But I was like, never mind about theology, and I found myself just saying like, oh man, I really miss you today. And how was that for you?
I talk to Michael all the time.
Okay.
And I think God's totally okay with that.
Yeah,
I do.
I do too.
And the other thing I think, and this is just my opinion, and because I read somewhere once, someone had written that our loved ones who are in heaven, they can't see us because heaven is a place where there is no mourning, there's no sadness, there's no tears. And I thought, I don't think that's true at all. I think, yes, heaven is a place where there's no sadness and no mourning and no tears, but they're not the same person in heaven than they were here. They're totally transformed. I think they can see us. They're just not sad or upset by what we're doing, right?
Yeah, and maybe they even can see the bigger picture that we don't see.
Well, and the Bible tells us, right? Right now, what we see through a glass, what does it do directly? Then we'll see face to face. So our loved ones who are in heaven, they see face to face. They see Jesus. Like they're not like us. Like it's different. They're transformed. So I think they do see us. I think God uses them. Like they're not just up there sitting around doing nothing.
Right.
God's using them to do things. That's what I think. But that's just me. That's just me.
I remember when I had lost a really good friend. He was killed by the Burma Army, and it had been maybe a year since his death, and I was going to see his parents for the first time, and hiking up the mountain, and I had a whole team with me, and we were going to do a whole program there, and I just suddenly got this image of him just so happy, like watching us hike up the trail and smiling like, oh, you're going to go meet my parents. You're going to meet my brothers. You're coming to bless my village. And he was just so excited that I was going there. And I also could, in this kind of just image in my mind, I could also see Jesus next to him smiling that he was happy.
Yeah.
That he was like, my friend Deichi was focused on me and watching us slog up this mountain. I was like huffing and puffing.
And he's probably laughing.
And he was like, oh yeah, this is perfect. And I could just sense Jesus was so proud and just had this joy towards Deichi that as he was watching us. And I thought, well, what a beautiful picture. And I was kind of like, where did that come from? But just a little gift.
Yeah. I had this dream once, not long, I don't know, several months after Michael died. And in the dream, like I was walking along this trail, and there was a fork in the trail, and there was this group of children that they sort of pointed me onto the one trail. That's the way I was supposed to go. And as I was walking, Tim joined me, and then Davis and Carolyn and my granddaughter, like they all joined me, and we were all walking together. And then Michael came alongside, and he just joined us. And he was walking along with us. And then we stopped, and he turned to me and he just said, Mom, I have to go up ahead, but you'll find me when you get there. It was like, I just knew God, like it was God's way of, he was just assuring me, Michael's with me.
Yeah.
He's okay. And you'll see him when you get there, he'll be there. Right. And it was just such a blessing.
I have a friend down in the States, and her sister-in-law, I don't know the extended family, but her sister-in-law and brother just lost their 3-month-old. And it was, they call it sudden infant death. And so really no explanation, no like cause of death. They can't quite figure it out, but just suddenly. And so they're like, I think today actually is the funeral for this 3-month-old.
Okay. Yeah.
And I bring that up just because I was thinking, like, at what point would you have wanted a book like what you've written, either in the devotional or in your book? Like, is it too soon, too close? And
I think everyone's different, and I think you really just have to take the lead of the person who is grieving to say, I have these resources. If you at any time think you'd like to have them, because I think everyone's readiness would be different,
right?
Because we're all different.
In my own life, I'd be like, I can't think, like my brain, it doesn't even work.
Oh,
right
you're
now.
in like paper, like can't think your way out of a paper bag.
Like you want to give me a book to read? Like forget it. So,
100%. Like my brain was just like fried the first while after. And I still, I joke with all my friends now because I still like, grief brain is real. That is real.
Yeah.
And when I was forgetting, I was always a forgetful person, but it's way worse now. And I thought, well, it'll pass, but it never did. I still, my memory is just, it's just like, so I just learned to adapt, everything's in my phone, notes for everything. I literally, this is not last year, but the year before, Davis's birthday is in January. And I make him a birthday cake every year. Oh. And that year I sat in his kitchen and talking to him and Carolyn about, I'll make the birthday cake, We went out for supper. And Carolyn, we're in this restaurant and she said, do you have the cake? And I was like, what? Talk about mother guilt.
Yeah.
I forgot to make Davis's cake. Who forgets to make their own son a birthday cake? That's when I really realized, I need to have things in place for my memory because it's not existent.
Yeah. Because you just end up in this. It's not at least for me, a lot of times it's not like melancholy depression, but it's just this place of I have no motivation, I have no energy, I can't stay focused on a task, and I know I struggle. Motivation is hard, and even in my prayer life, I think of myself as the ADHD prayer person because I start out and then all of a sudden I'll be like, oh Lord, okay, I know, I'm sorry, Lord, I just keep my brain's going off here and there, and I'm supposed to be praying, but I can't stick with it. So he's pretty patient. I always feel because I get that, and I always feel he just kind of smiles.
He's like, oh, there she goes again.
Yeah. I'll just be here, just whenever you're ready.
I'll just be waiting.
Right. And so people can get your books on Amazon.
Yes.
And they can get it through your website?
They can, on my website, it's just the link will take them to Amazon to purchase it, but there is a link on my website. They can go on Amazon, and for sure I have physical copies here in Kenora. If anyone who's here.
They can order this on the paperback version through Amazon as well.
Yeah.
So I originally bought them on Kindle.
Oh, okay.
To read, I wanted to read them because, in Thailand I couldn't.
Yeah.
But then as I see this book, the physical book I just think get the paperback with the photos full size, I think is, because in the Kindle you see it
they're smaller.
They're smaller. But so this is really beautiful, the book. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for your courage to share.
Thanks for having me.
And I hope that people will buy this book, not in the sense of that they're going to buy the book and you're going to make a bunch of money selling books.
I'm not making any money.
No, authors don't make money. But
you're mostly just trying to recoup what you've paid for the editing and all of that. But my biggest goal here is I'm trusting God to put this book in the hands of people who need to read it and who it will help. Yeah. That's the goal. And I hope people check out your blog as well. Mm-hmm. Through your blog, if they want to contact you, send you an email or something, is there a way? Oh, yeah, they can on the blog and on the website. There's a contact form, and I believe I think my email is there as well. But they can fill out the form. If they had a specific question about something, they can contact you. Yep. Well, there's so many things that we could talk about and different directions we could go, and we'll call it a day here. But I'm just so thankful that you're willing to share about this stuff so openly, and for me, it encourages me. But I think what really encourages me is your faith and just the honesty that you have in your faith, and your knowledge that God is with you through all of it. And that for me is super encouraging. And anyways, so thank you so much for coming and sharing your story. And thank you. Thanks for having me. And Okay.